Okay, so this video is for lesson 2, and this is part 2 for lesson 2. We are on page 564 of your student workbook. In part 1, we finished class example number 4, and I gave you this for your homework. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the equations of horizontal and vertical lines. You know what the slopes of horizontal and vertical lines are, but now we're going to look at the equations. So if you have your highlighter, you could highlight this. Okay, so just remember that draw yourself a vertical line, or sorry, a horizontal line. And if I said pretend that that is completely horizontal, it doesn't look like it, but pretend it is. If I said what is the slope of the ground, you know that the slope of the ground is 0. So a flat ground has no incline, so the slope is 0. If I gave you a straight vertical line and I said, well, what's the slope of this line? The slope of a vertical line is undefined. So slope is equal to undefined. There is no slope. So therefore, there's no slope. And I shouldn't actually even write the word equal. I should say slope is undefined. Okay, so what A says, it says state the slope and the y-intercept of the horizontal line 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the graph, the plane, the Cartesian plane, and we're going to locate line 1, which is right here. So it is this horizontal line right here, and the slope of a horizontal line, so we're going to write the slope of line 1, we know is 0, and the y-intercept of this line would be right here, would be the y-intercept, and the y-intercept is equal to 4. B says use the form y is equal to mx plus b to determine the equation of horizontal line 1. So line 1, the equation of the line in slope y-intercept form, which was introduced in the last lesson, is y is equal to mx plus b. And what we're going to do is we're going to say y is equal to, we're going to take the slope out, m out, and we're going to substitute in 0. So 0x plus 4. Anything times 0 is 0, right? So normally we would have like our slope and then our x value, but because we're multiplying our x by 0, this gets eliminated. And the equation of, sorry, that should be a 1. The equation of line 1 is y is equal to 4. This is going to sort of, from this, you should be able to now predict all of the equations of horizontal lines. So what C says is predict the equation of horizontal line 2. So let's find line 2, which is right here. So what's going to happen is the equation of line 1, because it was horizontal and it went through the y-axis at 4, the equation of this line was y is equal to 4. It was whatever the y-intercept was. So making a prediction, if I said, well, what do you guys think the equation of line 2 would be that has 0 slope, so 0x, and then we need to find the y-intercept, which is -6. The equation of this line here would be y is equal to -6. If, for example, I gave you this, y is equal to 8. And I said, well, what would this be? This, hopefully you can see, would be a horizontal line going through a y-intercept of 8. And if I took out my calculator and I went to y is equal to, remember we could type anything in as long as we're in the form of y is equal to. If you write the number 8, that is going to be a straight line, horizontal line, cutting through y is equal to 8. If I put in y is equal to -9, right? So in Y2, I'm going to type in -9. If I said, well, what's that going to look like? A horizontal line going through with the y-intercept of -9. Okay, so horizontal lines, nice and easy to get the equation of. Now we're going to figure out vertical lines. So for vertical lines, it says state the slope and y-intercept of vertical line 3. So let's find L3. So right here. So it's this vertical line here. So we know that the slope is undefined because it's vertical. So let's write slope, because it says state the slope. So slope is undefined. Then it wants the y-intercept. So if you look and if you say to yourself, okay, so what's the y-intercept? And you'd say, well, this like graph doesn't have a y-intercept, right? The y-axis is right here. It doesn't have a y-intercept. What this has is an x-intercept. So that would be -3, but that's an x-intercept. So we'd say, okay, the slope is undefined. We would say no y-intercept. So vertical lines don't have a y-intercept. No y-intercept. So what that means is we do not have an m value, right? Because there is no slope. We don't have a b value. So we can't write our equation in the form of y is equal to. So what we do is if we have a vertical line, so if your line is vertical, so we'll write vertical lines, vertical line equation. So with vertical or horizontal lines, you look at the intercept that they cut. In this case, for vertical lines, it's always going to be an x-intercept. So the equation of this line is going to be x is equal to -3. And that would be the equation of line 3. X is equal to -3. So then based on that, let's just say I drew a vertical line at right here. Okay, so let's say I drew a vertical line here, and I'm going to call this line 4. And if I said to you, well, what's the equation of this line? You look, whether they're horizontal or vertical, you look at the intercept. So in this case, the intercept is right here. It is an x-intercept. So the equation of line 4 would be x is equal to 5. Okay. If I drew a horizontal line going through, let's say right here, you look at the y-intercept, and that y-intercept would be -5, 6, 7. So that line there would be y is equal to -7. So that's how you do vertical and horizontal lines and the equations of them. Sometimes students will say, can I enter this on my calculator? And the answer is no. It is actually one of the only restrictions in math that I could find for the TI calculators. We are only actually able to enter y is equal to, so we could get all of our horizontal lines on here, but we can't get any vertical lines. There are some graphing calculator models that do have a button for x is equal to, but you really would only ever need that button if you're doing a vertical line, and it's just not necessary, right? So there is no questions that you would actually need to put it into your calculator. You'd just be able to do a simple sketch. Let's flip to this last page, and we're going to do class example 5. And the majority of your homework questions that I'm going to assign are going to be, if you understand class example 5, you'll be able to understand this. So it says determine the equation of a line that's going to go through this point here. So the first thing I want you to do, what's really helpful for this, is I want you to draw yourself a Cartesian plane. Let's label. And let's plot this point. So x is -2 and y is 8. So x is -2, y is 8. So that would be my point right there. Okay, so what the question says is determine the equation of a line. It's going to go through this point. And what it says is, what's a line that we could draw through this point parallel to the y-axis? So this is the y-axis right here. They want a line going through this point parallel to the y-axis. So if you have your ruler, take your ruler out. And a line going through this point, redraw it, parallel to the y-axis would look like this. So this is a line going through that point, the given point, which is -2, 8, and this line is parallel to the y-axis. And what they want is they want the equation of this line. So remember, when you have a horizontal, so this is what we just did in the investigation, when you have a horizontal or a vertical line, you just care about the point where it intersects at one of the axes. In this case, it's the x-axis. So the equation of this line is x is equal to -2. For B, determine the equation of a line that passes through that same point. Now they want the line to go parallel to the x-axis. So instead of parallel to the y-axis, they want my line to go parallel, so in this direction, to the x-axis. So you take your ruler, and draw a line going through your point. It doesn't quite look parallel because I didn't draw that straight, but this would be a line parallel to the x-axis. So with this green line here, if I said, well, what's the equation of this green line? We are dealing with a horizontal line. It cuts through this point on the y-axis. So the equation of that green line would be y is equal to 8. So that was that answer, and 8 was for your y. Okay, the homework that I want you to do for this lesson. So in your book, I want you to do now questions 6, 7, 9 to 11, 13, and 14. So 6, 7, 9 to 11, 13, and 14. I'm going to set up number 6 with you. And then I will do number 13 with you, because 13 is a question we've never done before, but it's expected that you'd be able to do this on a test. So let's set up number 6 together. So number 6 is the one we just did, right? This was very similar to class example 5. So state the equation of the following lines. They want it to go through this point. So you would say, okay, you draw yourself a rough sketch. And then once you actually start seeing the pattern, you won't even need to draw the sketch, and you'll just be able to look at the point and get the equation. So the point, though, is -5 and 3. So my y value is 3, my x value is -5. So that's my point there. I'll do A with you, and then you would figure out the rest. Parallel to the y-axis. So this is the y-axis, therefore that would be parallel. You are cutting through your x at -5. So the equation of this green line would be x is equal to -5. Right? Many of you should be able to sort of just see now, draw your horizontal line, and then you could get, because that one's parallel to the x-axis, get your equation. Do this point, and then D, if you get D correct, that means you understand the pattern that there's going to come out of this by just looking at the coordinates. So that is number 6. Let's do number 13 together. So this is going to be a question that we're going to end up doing like a lot of this. But you haven't seen anything like it just yet. Okay, so I'm going to circle this and I'm going to star 13. Because this will always be put on a quiz or exam. So the point 2, -1 lies on a line with a slope of 3. What's the y-intercept of this line? So we know that the equation of a line is this. Y is equal to mx plus b. So they want the b value, right? And I know that the slope is 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this equation that I know, and let's take m out, and let's put 3 in. 3ax plus b. Now, if our point up to this question, all of the points have been something like this. X is 0 and y is 5. And if you were given a point like this, when x is 0 and y is 5, that's our y-intercept, right? But x has to be 0. So if x was 0, whatever that point is, that would be your b value. B is equal to 5. And then it's nice and easy. I just put in a 5. But my b value is not -1 because this is not a y-intercept, right? Because that is not, to be a y-intercept, x must be 0. So what we do is, it's actually really easy to find out what the b value is. If you are missing the b value and I give you a point, all you simply need to do is substitute this point into this equation. Because they gave me a y value, I could put in the y value. They gave me an x value, I could put in the x value, and then I could manipulate this and get the b value. So let's do that. Y is -1. So -1 is equal to 3 times x. X is 2 plus b. I'm just going to write this up here. -1 is equal to 3 times 2 is 6 plus b. And you are going to isolate b by getting rid of the 6. So subtract 6 from b, both sides. B is equal to -7. And that's your y-intercept. That is how you would do that question. So I'm going to stop this video. Yes.
Couldn't you also use this countdown?
Definitely. But you know what? So I'm just stopping.